Hello, hello, hello. We are back again with the Triggered AF podcast. How y'all doing, ladies?
I am fantastic.
I'm good.
Yeah. Listen, this episode is about to be so good because we're going to talk about the one thing that trips up every single one of us, male, female, black, white, orange, purple, blue, yellow, them, they, he, she, doesn't matter. If you are a human, fear at one point will trip you up. But what we have to do is reframe our relationship with fear so it can go from being our enemy to something that we can leverage and utilize as a friend. At least that's my belief.
My belief too.
Yeah.
Fear is a friend.
Fear happens.
Fear happens. It happens. Kind of like shit. Fear happens. So no, we have with us today Tonya Rapley. I am so excited to have her. Not only is she a mompreneur, but she is the founder of My Fab Finance. And if y'all have heard even a little bit or even been able to not only attend an event or absorb some of the knowledge and information that she gives, you already know this is about to be a good old conversation. So we about to tap in.
So we know you wear a lot of hats, and the only question we ask all of our guests, because just about everyone we have on this show is so multi-hyphenate, so like all the titles, all the accolades, all the awards, and it's really easy to get caught up and wrapped up in that and identify with that too much. So outside of all the wonderful things you have done and accomplished, who would you say that you are?
Oh man, I love that question because I think I spent the last year figuring that out. Who I am now is a beautiful soul having a human experience.
Yes.
And I am healing. I am a lover. And I'm a change agent. I'll say that.
Ooh,
Yes,
change agent.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
change your life.
Oh, hello. I like that.
That is why I said I can't just date any old body.
Listen.
You're going to have to give into me because I mean
Sir.
life changer. I'm going to change your life.
Your life will not be the
That part.
same. Bet that. Like, I know it.
Bet
So,
that. Hey, bet that.
Are you ready?
I'm
Is you
ready for
ready?
the change. Okay.
I like that confidence, that knowing like who you are. And so
Yeah.
many times they'll tell women, well, you don't want to be, you don't want to be too much, be a lady. Why isn't me being sure of myself also being a lady? Like,
Right.
You can be confident and still be ladylike, I think. But I do think that there's a lot of, it's been a male-dominated society for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of like the motivation and everything out there is in the masculine. I know when I was about to leave my job, and talking about fear, I was about to leave my job and I was listening to like this Les Brown, Eric Thomas, Tony Robbins mashup every day. And it was like really masculine, and it was like, I did have to learn how to tap into my feminine motivation, which is more so allowing and surrendering, I think.
Yeah.
And, and I think that because that was unseen for me, it's like, well, there was fear and surrender because I felt like that made me vulnerable by surrendering. But there's also strength in surrender, and there's trust in surrender. And so I think that for a long time though, we've been told as women that we have to tap into our masculine, and so men just are like, well, she's masculine because y'all been telling us to tap into it.
so we've been tapping in.
So y'all been giving us.
And I think it can be useful in its own ways. Like I think that masculine energy can get us going.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we should stay there. Like I think that masculine energy can get you to jump off the cliff. But once you're in that water, you got to figure it out. You may need to surrender so you don't drown and fight that tide and fight that energy in the water.
True.
So I think a mix of the two. But I think what our problem is we forget to take the masculine out of the driver's seat and replace it with the feminine. We have that masculine energy just rule our lives forever. And I think that's where we mess up. But I think both can be, if used appropriately, can be super useful. And I think it has been useful to us. We just stay there too long.
We forget.
Stay there too long.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree completely with that. I went skydiving in Australia. That is not, I know. As soon as I said it, I felt.
Skydiving is, I've been skydiving too. It's real.
It's a very.
I've never been. I'm like, I don't need to go. I want to be like, no, I'll stay on the ground.
But here's the thing though. So, okay, when I went skydiving, I was with a girlfriend of mine. She's actually been on the podcast. Hey, Ashley, don't worry. I'm not telling her business. She has shared the story too.
Okay.
However, so we both went skydiving. We both had a very, very different experience. The masculine, you do need that to jump out of the plane.
Yes, you do.
It is scary.
Yeah.
It is terrifying.
It is.
However, once I got out of the plane, I told myself to relax and breathe it in.
You'd have to.
And once I relaxed and allowed my feminine to flow into the experience and to allow myself to enjoy it and to open my eyes and look
around,
and I was able to breathe in, it was the most peaceful experience. You literally feel like you were gliding. Like you become a bird, you are weightless. Now, Ashley's experience was traumatizing. She said she was traumatized. She wouldn't do it again because she tried to fight the entire experience because she stayed too long in the masculine at that time.
Yeah.
And she said it was so frustrating for her because she couldn't let her body relax.
You gotta give in.
You have to surrender. You cannot. If you don't surrender, it is going to be a terrible experience for you.
Yes.
That's why that whole, it's okay to have the masculine, but also then allow that feminine to be able to flow, because
take over,
the femininity allows you to take it in, to breathe it in, to explore, to enjoy. I've never seen such a beautiful sight in all of my life.
I can imagine it's beautiful, and I love birds, and I always say I feel like
you see them,
but I'm not going to.
It's okay. It's like having a glass bottom boat. Only you're in the sky. So you know how when you're in a plane normally, you can't see below you? Skydiving is like a glass bottom plane.
No, it's not. It's a
not.
lot. No, glass bottom is way more safe. Skydiving is very
no.
elements.
I'm talking about being able to see, not the experience. I'm saying how you can see what's happening under the boat in a glass bottom boat. I could see all the things. I wasn't blocked by a plane.
I feel like in a glass bottom boat, you're still in the confines of the boat, so you're safe, just like you're in the confines of the plane. Skydiving ain't nothing there to confine.
I was going to say, I feel like skydiving is equivalent to like
you're talking about the look.
Yes, you guys are talking about the feeling. I'm talking about the look.
Oh, the observation.
I think a better example would be like when you're in a cage, like swimming with sharks, and you're in the cage, but the sharks can't get you. I feel like if we're comparing, I think skydiving is a little more like that because you're really in the element.
But you're talking about the feeling. I'm only talking about
the birds fly by you. Like,
I don't remember any birds. I just
not close.
Like when you're like scuba diving, you're pretty high up.
That's when we were going down.
Birds.
No, it's when we were going down that I saw them. I didn't see them super high.
Yeah, when you just about the plane, I don't think birds are up there because the air is so thin.
That's why you gotta relax.
To breathe because the air is like cold and thin, and you can't breathe like that. So you have to calm down, or you're gonna feel like you're literally gonna feel like you're about to die, like you're about to pass out. A lot of people do pass out when skydiving.
Really? Oh, yes.
It's because you don't.
If I ever was considering skydiving before this, it's a wrap. Like, you guys will not see Tonya hopping out of a boat, hopping out of a plane. No.
I'm telling you some good things. Listen, every extraordinary thing is on the other side of fear. Okay?
Oh my gosh.
It just is. However, I feel like for us, we've been conditioned too often to fear every part of ourselves, especially the pieces that we either don't like or that we don't understand. And so that fear can kind of stop us from doing things that we really do have an ability to do. But because we're so afraid of it, we won't even try. So like, how have you because in my opinion, you are the queen of, okay, this no longer aligns, I'm going to start something new. Whether or not it makes sense, from buying a company to going into a space that you haven't been into, to securing your mentors to help you through and navigate. How have you learned to work through, and what do those steps look like to work through the fear of starting something new or of starting over, and to move in spite of that very real fear, except for the skydiving?
The physical fears is like, I don't know, but mental and professional fears, I definitely have more courage and confidence navigating them. I would say that when I think about one of my biggest regrets, I'm glad that I went to the institution I went to. I went to I graduated from the same school as these ladies, Florida International University. But I'm also from North Carolina, and I think about when I was younger, I always loved Chapel Hill. And I talked myself out of applying to Chapel Hill. Like, I told myself I was afraid of rejection. And so I never even applied. And then I remember a couple years later, like, people who were not even doing as well as me in high school were like at Chapel Hill. And I was like, you should have trusted yourself. Like, you should have at least tried. And so I think from that lesson, I learned, like, even if you're afraid of rejection, even if you're afraid of it, just try.
Yeah.
So that was when I started out at Fable, stayed in North Carolina, and I was like, I want to go to college in Miami. I'm going to move to Miami. And I think that was the start of me just doing and following through. And so I think that even though I moved to New York with $500 in my wallet, I just like moved my bank account. I was like, okay, I'm gonna move to New York. And it worked out. Ended up leaving New York with a business, a husband, a master's degree, and everything else. And I guess I just kept, the more that I tried and like the more that I faced fear and the more that I was successful, made me more fearless. And I think that we expect to be fearless without trying ourselves. It's like, no, you build your fear muscle, or you build your confidence muscle by going up consistently against what you're fearful of. And then I think your confidence becomes greater than your fear. So now as a businesswoman, my confidence is greater than my fear. It's like, okay, this might not work out. And I do have those fears, but I'll talk to myself like I'm transitioning to government contracting. Every morning when I'm meditating, I'm like, you're a successful government contractor. You are a successful government contractor. Like I'm working on that muscle. And then also I have the proof and the record behind it for me to trust myself.
Yeah. Oh, well, so then follow up, what happens when you don't have any proof or record? Let's say everything you've tried, everything you've done has failed. Because there are people who have failed at a lot of things that they've tried. Yeah. I know I failed at so much, like at this point, it's a little embarrassing to say it out loud.
Listen, I failed. I failed too. I bought a company. I bought a personal hygiene company, and I thought that it was going to go the way I wanted it to go. And then I was like, I won't do this no more. Like, this is a lot harder. So an e-commerce business is a lot harder, and it has inventory, and take me back to IP. Take me back to low overhead. Like, I want to go back there. But it's a company that I ended up closing. Like, we put a lot of money in it. And this morning I was using the body wash we developed for it. We spent a lot of money on like creating custom body care lines and everything else, and we just had to close it. And I think that also you have to ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen if things don't work out? And that helps a lot with fear too. If you don't have the proof, like I didn't have the proof that I could be a successful entrepreneur when I became one 8 years ago, but I was like, what's the worst thing that could happen? You got to go back and get a job. Okay. All right, we can do this. That's not worst case scenario. Like, okay, I'll go back and get a job. And here we are 8 years later, but I didn't have proof. And I didn't come from a line of entrepreneurs. I didn't go to school for business or entrepreneurship or anything like that. But I just had to ask myself, what's the worst thing that could happen? I mean, there are certain things. I was scared of childbirth. Like, I was terrified of it, especially talk about maternal mortality rates and everything else. And so what's the worst that could happen? Boo, you could die. Like, that's the worst that could happen. Okay, so what are we going to do to try to reduce the likelihood of that happening? So that's when I was like, okay, I have a traditional OBGYN and I got a midwife. And I'm taking 12 weeks of birthing classes. So it's like, now I've stacked the deck against so that I can hedge towards my desired outcome and instead of just leaving things to circumstantial chance. But then it also comes where you just got to surrender to God too.
It's like controlling the things you can't control and just giving it to the things that you can.
Right, because all that and I was still in labor for 23 hours and I was ready to throw the whole birth plan out the window. All that, and I was still ready to throw the birth plan, and he still did what he wanted to do, and he did not come until I surrendered. And I think that was a lesson for me too. Like, in our fear, sometimes we try to stack things in our favor and everything else and wield it in our favor. And sometimes you still just have to surrender. He did not come until I was just like, all right, just
let it go.
Do what you want to do.
Let it go.
And I think a lot of times fear gets a bad rap. Like, it's like we just feel like, oh, we're afraid of things, and fear is your enemy, and fear is going to destroy you. And we just have such a bad, I think, relationship with fear a lot of the times. And I think there are so many instances that if we really thought about it, you can think of when fear was your friend. And because of the fear, you were able to accomplish. So I wanted to know, I know you gave a little bit of that with talking about your college experience and even motherhood, but can you think of maybe one of your greatest achievements where you felt like fear was the catalyst? Like, if you didn't have fear, you would not have accomplished that thing?
If I did not have fear, I would not have accomplished it. I would say, one of my greatest fears has been like not experiencing life the way I desired to experience it. Ooh. It was like, what if you don't ever live the life that you know you're capable of? Wow. And that was a big fear of mine before I started my business, because I was working in a nonprofit. organization, making like $45,000 in Brooklyn, New York. And I was like, this ain't it.
How many roommates did you have? 5?
2. I had 2 roommates. And I was like, this is not it. Tonya, what if this is your life for the rest of your life? And that was scary to me.
Yeah.
Like, you have all these things you want to accomplish. You have all these freedoms, these freedoms you want to have. You want to experience motherhood a certain way.
Yeah.
What if you don't get to do any of that and you just live like this mundane life on autopilot?
Whew.
And that made me terrified.
My greatest fear.
That made me, that's still,
That is definitely my greatest fear.
That motivated me. It was like,
I just gotta accept this?
And this
Absolutely
is it?
not. Absolutely not.
This is not the life that I feel like I was put here to live.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So I would say that was like, and it gave birth to me, like starting a business and trusting myself and becoming an entrepreneur. And there's so many things I feel like I've experienced, so many relationships I've made because of that.
Yeah.
Just so many places I've seen, so many lives that I've touched.
Yeah.
And just the quality of my life is just, I feel incredibly blessed that I get to live life in the manner in which I live it in. And it started with fear of not experiencing this.
So that's how you turn it into your friend. Think, and this is me paraphrasing, so tell me if I'm right or wrong. It's think absolute worst case scenario of what happens if you don't do the thing.
Right, because that a lot of times that's way scarier than you actually trying.
Yes, way scarier. It is.
Wait, that's a monster.
And fear is there to protect us. At the end of the day, like you said, it's your friend. It's part of your ego's protection of you. But your ego is not always the most logical. Your ego is...
It's just there to protect you at all costs. It don't matter how.
It's so illogical. It's like all of this. All of it is a
Everything
threat.
Is gonna kill you.
Everything is awful. And so it is up to us operating in our logical mind to be able to say, no, thank you, ego. I really appreciate what you're trying to do.
Thank you so much.
But let's try this. If we get too far in and things start looking crazy, step back in.
Yeah. Come in and save me.
Come get me, okay? But we gonna try for now. But I think that everybody has fear, and I think everybody has fear.
Yeah.
Beyonce has fear. I think that was really empowering when she was talking about she's scared when she gets on the stage.
Yeah, and you would never think that because it damn sure don't look that way.
No, she gets up there and kills it and
Every
turns into a different person.
Sasha fears.
And it's just like, if Beyonce got fear when she steps on that stage, you're more than understandable why you would have fears too. But you can do it.
Yeah, you literally have to decide like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in being very, very intentional about how you raise your children.
Yeah.
Because fear is a human experience, I feel as though like if we teach them early how to navigate the things that terrify them or the things that scare them, then they're better able to cope because, and this is just my opinion, I feel too kids have a really tough time coping now. Like they don't know how to regulate emotions. Everything is, extreme to the point of and this is not an affront to anyone whose child has made this decision, but everything is, okay, I gotta kill myself. Okay, I gotta kill you. Okay, I have to hurt or harm or somebody else because they can't navigate and cope, right? And so how do you, because we're all mothers on here and you have a 4-year-old. A 4-year-old. I was like, well, I give 2 more years. Yeah. I added y'all 2 kids. Ages together. That's literally what happened in my head. I was like, 4, 6, okay, 4, 2, okay, 6. But how do you teach your child, or how would you even suggest folks to teach their children how to begin to navigate fear and what that looks like and how it comes up and how they can work themselves through those feelings when they do come up, because it's going to happen.
I think for me, the first thing for me was checking my own fear and making sure that I wasn't imposing fear onto him.
Which is so easy to do.
Yeah.
So you just want to protect them.
You do. You want to just protect them. And sometimes I just feel like, no, Tonya, you gotta step back and let him do this. Like, I have to ask myself, what's the worst that can happen if he does this? Right? You gotta step back and let him do. So the first thing for me is making sure I'm not imposing my own fears on him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then if he shows up in a situation where he's naturally fearful, then I ask him, what's going on? What's going on? How are you feeling? What's wrong? What are you afraid is going to happen?
Yeah.
And then we talk to him, I'm like, why do you think that's going to happen? And it's like, okay, that's understandable. But I'm here to help you. I'm here to support you, and you're capable. You're more than capable. And one of the things that I do to also address his fear muscle is that I've been speaking affirmations over him every night since he was like maybe 10 days old. So I speak affirmations to him every night. Like, you are safe, you are healthy, you are powerful, you are brilliant, you are remarkable.
Is this when he's awake or asleep?
When he's
or
awake.
both?
So we say our prayers and we go into affirmations. Like after we say our prayers, we say our affirmations.
Yeah, right before I put her down, that's what I do too.
So they're fresh on them, right? They're fresh.
It's in their subconscious, so it can, permeate
so sometimes
all night.
I do it when they're asleep too, because so apparently there's something that's happening in the brain where, like, when you're asleep and you hear things, it sits in your subconscious on a deeper level.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it did make sense to me. And I was like, okay, so there's some science behind it of also, like, if you want your, like, playing soft music when they're sleeping.
So he does,
Yeah, and, like, also, like, if you want them to learn something, like, say you want to start teaching them numbers, if you can, like, start counting while they're sleeping or saying those affirmations while they're in deep sleep especially, supposedly it does something and sits deeper in and comes more hardwired.
I'm going to do that. I'm gonna start doing that, but I think that's also
supposedly. I don't know. They
you're telling them like
that sounded good to me.
You're capable. Like if you're telling them you're capable, you're powerful, you're capable, you're powerful. I think that also helps arm them against fear as well, because then they start to have more confidence.
Yeah, especially I love what you said about safety. I think that's such a big thing to help with coping. The safer you feel is the more confident you feel
to navigate.
And I think because so many of us, period, feel unsafe, it's almost like our default. It's like our innate way of feeling, because so many of we have to think a lot of times our parents and our parents' parents are coming from a very fear-driven generation.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, these are people who've seen wars. These are people who lived through the civil rights. These are people who are, especially in the Black community, we're coming out of slavery, of just really tough times.
Epidemic. It's just
so much.
War on drugs.
so much trauma.
Welfare. It's Black people are a traumatized group of humans.
Yeah, but so we always talk about Black people being traumatized, but I also think white people are traumatized too, because the abuser often has their own traumas that they're trying to kind of work through, and unfortunately, they live out their traumas by causing abuse. It's still it's the same thing in a different outfit.
Trauma.
They definitely have it. I mean, we see it manifest in the way that members of their community decide to walk into schools and shoot them up. That is a traumatized individual. And the fact that they are disproportionately responsible for that is a clear indication that something is going on in y'all community that we need to address immediately.
And the inability to cope.
Inability to cope.
Because I do think that one of the things about, with all the trauma that we've endured as a people, is that we're resilient and we have better coping skills because we've had to cope.
You had no choice.
Now they're like, oh my God, we out here in this same world. And they coping better than us. Like, yes, we are. Because we're resilient people. We had to.
It's like in our DNA now. Like, we're so wired for it. But I do think that, yes, because we are resilient, and yes, we do have coping mechanisms, but I do think that sometimes because we are riddled with so much fear, it can hold us back from doing things. And we've all grown up with, don't go there because this is going to happen. Or
don't do that.
Don't travel by yourself or else you're going to die for sure.
My God, when I wanted to live by myself for the first time, my mom was just like, what do you mean you want to live by yourself? No, you need a roommate. You're a woman. You're going to get raped. Somebody could kill you. What's going to do?
Like, girl, that could happen if I have a roommate.
It's like
she's not going to be there all the time.
It's just, I think it's in the name of protection, but it starts so young that it becomes so hardwired in us. So I want to know, like you were talking about, you have to deal with your own fears before helping your child. What were some of the things that you did to start overriding some of those deep innate fears that, like, a book is not going to help you with? It's like some things are so deeply rooted in me that it takes so much constant rewiring every day to work through it. So do you have any of those things, or things that you did or things that you do now to kind of always rewire that part of your brain that really holds, that tries to kind of keep you away from doing things you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I would say my faith has given me more, it makes me more fearless.
Okay.
I think because I don't necessarily, I don't identify as Christian. I don't identify as like any particular religion, but I have a very, very defined spiritual relationship with God.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I know who I am. I know whose I am. And so a lot of times I have to tell myself, I know whose I am. I'm God. I know that I'm God's child. And that's not to say that things that happen to bad people aren't God's children either, or they're not aware. But I just choose to operate with the knowing that, like, I'm protected. And think about all the other times in my life like for me, evidence is just really important. Think about all the times when it's like, girl, it should have went all the way left.
Oh
I put
God.
myself in some predicaments when I was younger.
Yes.
And it's just like, you're protected. Know that you're
Got to
protected.
be.
Know that you're protected and
Yeah.
call on the protection of God, your ancestors, and everything else, and know that you walk with the power of them behind you.
Yeah.
And I think that is it really does help me. But that doesn't mean that sometimes I'm follow my intuition too. And I think it's honing my intuition and learning to trust my
That's a big
intuition
one.
to know that,
That's a big
okay,
one.
are we going to take ourselves out of this situation? Okay, there were times I remember living in New York City, I would be on the subway and I'd be like, I'm going to get off this car.
Yeah,
And
And
I
something
gotta
was
go.
just
Nothing might have happened, but I was like, you know what? Something's telling me to get on this
Sorry.
car. I'm going to wait for the next one. Like, I'm going to wait for the next train.
Oh.
I don't want to be on this one.
Yeah.
You know, and it is just like trusting your intuition. I think trusting my intuition and becoming more in tune with my intuition has also helped me when it comes to
That's a
navigating
big
fear.
one. They say that the gut is actually the first brain, and the gut is where our
Everything
intuition
originates,
is held.
Mhm.
And it's like
that's
that's
where the soul is.
yeah, and that's where they say trust your gut, right?
So I do a lot of alignment work. Like
Yeah,
for me,
okay.
I do a lot of energetic alignment work to make sure that I'm not blocked so that I can access all of it.
and
So,
make sure you're connected to your body.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do a lot of that too, and that's super important because when I'm disconnected, it's like everything just
Nothing makes
starts
sense.
falling. Yeah, everything, and I can't
Yeah.
trust myself.
Yeah.
So I love you saying that because I think we have become so disconnected from our body, so we're disconnected from our intuition, so we're disconnected from our higher power, and those things are put in place to help guide us.
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
that is one of the pitfalls of like traditional religions is they don't teach us to trust our gut enough. They don't teach
No.
us that God is within us and God is guiding us from within.
It's too
as
hard
well.
to control people that think like that.
Yeah, but it's just like I feel like
Control
when you know that you're connected, you just operate differently, or when you're
Yeah.
out of connection, so that you can, once you realign, you make better decisions. When you make better decisions, you
Yeah.
have less fear because you trust yourself.
Exactly.
It all starts working together.
Yeah.
It all starts working together, and I think that's when you become supernatural, like you have superpower.
Yes.
You're tapped in.
Because
You tap in,
you can feel things. Like yesterday was so funny. I literally could feel each time. I'm like, okay, that camera's about to die. Hey, we're gonna need to be able to do this. Okay, hey, Sanaya's having some trouble. My phone was in there under something, and she was like, I was calling you so many times. I was like, yeah, I know, I felt you.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
and I don't even know.
That's powerful.
Like, and she was like, how do you know that? I was like, I don't know. I feel it.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're always like
feel it.
amazed by each other's intuition.
Yes.
Like she's always like, what? How did you see that? Or how did you feel that?
Yeah.
Or I'll like randomly, like I have a girlfriend who is not spiritual. Like she grew up kind of atheist. Like she's just not a person who is in tune with that side of her at all.
Mhm.
And she thinks I am so freaky. Like she is like, what is, like I'll
What's
just
wrong
like
with you?
text her out the blue. I'm like, hey, are you okay? You've been on my mind. And she was like, oh my God, I'm having the hardest day today. Like, I was like, yeah, something told me to check on you. What's going on? And she's just like, huh? Like, why do you? And like, she's always
Like,
telling
girl,
other people,
Get
like,
you some of this alignment.
listen,
Right.
it changes the game.
Find
It's
and
just-
connect with it.
it makes a difference, and it just helps. And I love how you call it like a superpower, because you literally do walk through the world with a different level of confidence.
Yes.
That's
different
rooted in
energy.
something higher than you. And when you can
Yeah.
place your confidence in something beyond you,
Yes.
it's so much harder to waver and take that
Yeah.
away from me, because I know it's not just rooted in my little human self. Like I know there's this big, huge thing that created all this beautiful world and all these universes that has empowered me to feel
Right.
this way and to do these
That
things.
wants me to have it too.
Yeah, so
And
it's
that's the
like,
best part.
yeah, and I'm just
Okay.
like, okay, no, I'm good. Like, and
Yeah.
when you trust that, you really do have this sense of invincibility
Yeah.
that makes fear something that you can use as a tool, as opposed to something that holds you back and makes you feel like you can't do things. But when you feel powerless, fear is gonna run you rampant.
It's gonna run your life.
Oh my
It's
gosh,
gonna-
because you don't feel any power around it. So then when the fear comes in, it just takes over and completely consumes you. And then that starts to become a part of your personality.
Yeah.
And then it's even
Now you're
harder to
scary.
shake it. Yeah, you're
Scary.
They call it scary.
Now you're scary.
You just scared of
She's
all
so
the
scary.
things. Exactly. Like, you don't want to go out. Nah, man, she's so scary.
She's so scary.
Dang.
It's a southern term. Like, man, she's so scary, man.
Yeah, I'm scared of everything.
Just everything, all the things. And two, like, okay, we're not bashing y'all saying, oh, y'all scary cats, although a little bit. However, there are some things that no matter how much you prepare for, read about, read through, some things you just gotta learn on the job.
Mm-hmm.
On the job training is very
You gotta prove it to yourself. Like something you just gotta
experience.
Yeah, you can't always prepare for what's coming. Kind of like how you had the entire thing, and then here we are, 24 hours. You said 24 hours, right?
23 hours.
23 hours into labor. You like, you know what, man? Fuck these birth plans.
I was like, go get him. Go get him. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, I gotta, y'all just vacuum, like, some little clamp thingy, like something. Go get him.
Get him out of me.
They're like, we can't do that.
This is not an emergency.
So
You're gonna have to calm down.
But it went how it went how his birth plan was supposed to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing about parenthood is like, there's a whole other set of fear that comes around along with parenting.
What?
So there's like my own fear,
experience.
my professional fear, the fear to me, but then like the fears that I have for my son, the fear that I have in like being a mama bear is completely different. And I have to admit, like that I feel like every step of motherhood, like you're coming up against new fears.
Oh my gosh.
Just
I think those fears for me have been the hardest to manage.
Yeah.
Because they're about somebody else that you don't have as much control over.
You don't.
So,
and especially once they learn how to walk. Like, and then talk, and then to express themselves. Because learning how to walk, talk, and express yourself, those are 3 totally different, separate elements that happen.
Yeah.
You can learn how to talk, but not know how to express yourself. But once you have figured out that third piece, I don't have very much control.
No.
And the real fear sets in. And I think that's why there's so
fear.
much friction sometimes between that teenager and the parent, is because they start to step into their own little
They're
personality.
like, you know nothing.
Yeah.
You know nothing.
Dumb. I don't know how you made it
Girl.
this far.
We're both thinking, but I think the parent and the teenager think that about each other.
Yeah, just dumb.
It's so funny. The older you become, you be like, man, life is life. Like, regardless of if it was the 1960s, the 70s, the 80s, like, life is life. The core elements of living is, like, the same.
And we all experience it in very similar ways. Like, I'm always so inspired, and I always feel so connected to humanity by memes. I think that's why we love them, because it's like, all y'all are feeling like this? Where we all experience, we all think we're just in our own little bubble experiencing this very explicit life that's just over here that nobody else
is only unique to us.
Yes.
And when I used to take acting classes, that would be the number one thing my acting coach used to say. He'd be like, he would say you're not special, but not in a way that you're not important. It was just like, you have to remove this idea that you're so different from other people, because you can't tap into characters. And the only way you can tap into characters is by tapping into yourself and connecting with other people so that you can understand them and absorb them and become them. You know, so it's like, there's this man, I think his name is Norman Lear, and he's like the creator.
I've heard that name.
Yeah, he's like the creator of like, Archie Bunker. He produced Good Times and things like that. And one of my favorite things that he says is like, I try to see myself in other people. Like seeing myself in you helps me connect to you. And he talks about like, that's how he was able to try to like understand like Blackness and promote it. And he was a very big agent in putting Black people in better lights in media.
I like that.
You know, so it was like, so I always took that with me, where it's just like, you have to be able to just relate. And memes do that for us in like the most basic way. And that's why I think they're so popular because of that. Because it's just like, you too? Okay. Like, we're alive.
I love a good meme thread.
It does something good to us. It really, really does. I love that.
Yeah, it does. And I feel like a lot of the times when we're supposed to connect with people and we need to put ourselves out there, I think that comes with a lot of fear. And a lot of times in this world, we kind of get to a space where, because we're so afraid of being vulnerable, we close ourselves off. And as someone like you who works in business, you have to work with other people. How have you been able to kind of let your guard down and trust people and trust them to maybe work for you or work with you and have partnerships? Because I know for a lot of new entrepreneurs, that's a big thing that holds them back, is the fear of other people and the fear of people disappointing them and letting them down. So how do you learn to trust them and work with them in a way that can help you move forward?
Besides contracts.
Contracts are a great start.
Contracts.
I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs deal with. think it also boils down to intuition, like who you're hiring and everything else, following your intuition. If you're doing the interview process and something doesn't feel right, then maybe that's not the person to add to the team.
Yeah.
I think that for me, it was slowly giving people access and responsibility when it came to my team.
So taking time.
Yeah, it's like I needed to see your character and see how you carried yourself and handled yourself. Now my executive assistant, she has my credit cards. Like I trust her. We've been working together for 3 years. She didn't start out that way. She didn't even start out completely managing my inbox. You know, she started out with like smaller tasks and we grew from there. But I think, you know, if you don't have that time to develop somebody, then asking for recommendations, that's not always the case. Like sometimes you can get bad recommendations.
Yeah.
But I think asking for recommendations, then you have to hone that muscle. Entrepreneurship is a lot of following your intuition as well.
Yeah.
Like you're calculated when it comes to numbers, but a lot of it is following your intuition. And yes, we can have contracts and everything else in place, but you got to have the budget to be able to fight stuff. Like you gotta have the budget to lawyer up.
Yeah.
So like let's try to make sure we're in alignment in some of these other areas if we can't afford to lawyer up.
Yeah.
So that we can minimize as many things. And I think that as many things as possible. And I think that for me, it was also continuing to ask myself, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
What's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
And then you talked about like having an open heart. I was reading something the other day and they're talking about like how when you put boundaries around your heart, yes, you protect your heart from the bad, but you also protect your heart from the
Keep
good.
people out.
Yeah.
Keep things out.
You keep the good things out too. And so it comes to developing courage and understanding that I can navigate the bad with the good and that I have the tools to navigate the bad as well. It's not going to feel good, but it's a lesson that I need to learn in this life.
Yeah.
And so let me get better at these particular lessons. So I know for me, having gone through a divorce and then I broke up with the person that I was with after I left my husband, after me and my husband got a divorce, it's just like I'm building up my courage and my honor muscle. I'm building up my ability to say, okay, I'm going to choose and honor myself. Yes, I opened my heart up and it didn't go the way that I thought it would, but I'm leaving here with something.
Yeah.
I'm leaving here with some lessons. You know what I mean?
One of these lessons
I'm leaving here with something. I'm leaving here with a lesson. I'm leaving here with a better understanding and moving closer to the love and the life that I want to experience as a result of having the courage to navigate that.
Yeah, and
So
isn't Maya Angelou that says learn to trust love again and again.
I'm gonna keep trying.
One more time again. Yeah,
it's like
you have to trust yourself
and your discernment, right? You got like I can endure anything as long as they don't bring physical harm to me.
Yeah, and like Alicia always says, but did you die?
Yeah, that's what you gotta add. Like that heartbreak
always says that.
But girl, did you die?
Like you're okay.
Because if you didn't die, that means you have another opportunity. You can figure it out. And the one thing that you just said that I love, oh my God, I loved it. You just said, I don't even think you knew you were saying it. The lesson to learning to honor yourself.
Yeah.
That is the biggest piece.
That's a big one, yeah.
Because you play yourself and you dishonor yourself each time you accept something that you know doesn't work for you.
Yeah. And fear allows us to dishonor ourselves.
Yes, because you sit in it too long, afraid to make a move. And it's like, but if you say no and if you release the thing that's taking up space, that's literally clogging up your pipes, then things are able to flow through it now. Because I love the fact that you believe in honoring yourself. It is absolutely important. And how we decide to honor ourselves, trust ourselves, decide that, what we're going to do and how we're going to utilize fear, it becomes a habit, right?
Yeah.
And habits become our defaults and our defaults become like our way of life. So how would you suggest we can even begin, because it's hard to break a habit.
It is.
Like once you in it, it's like it's up and it's stuck. But many things should not be up and stuck.
Yeah.
So how would you suggest, especially because you've gone through a number of challenges and changes and transitions and all the things, so how would you suggest we even begin to start to shift our defaults and our habits so that we can live lives that are not rooted in fear and it being a
like what are some
for us?
Like step by steps that that people can take home with them and like use on it? Like you talked about affirmations, you talk about alignment. Like what are some of those things you do on a daily basis?
Well, the most important thing to me is knowing what my core values are. Ooh. So I think that once I became very clear on my core values, then it became my metric, my rubric. For when I measured anything against it, I measure all my decisions against it.
Do you mind giving some examples of what that is? Because I don't know if everyone understands what core values are.
And the core values, so I think like go on YouTube and watch like a core values exercise, or you can download like any core value exercise online. They'll give you a list of core values and they'll kind of walk you through. First, you'll select like all of the ones that align with you from the list, and then you'll narrow it down to 10, and then you narrow it down to 3 or whatever. So I couldn't settle on 3. I have 4. It's joy, personal growth, freedom, and relationships. Those are my core values. And so if it's a relationship, I'm going to measure it against those core values. Do I feel joy in this dynamic? Do I feel free in this dynamic? Do I feel personal growth? Do I feel like I can grow in this dynamic?
Yeah.
Does it honor my desire to have substantial personal relationships? And is this a substantial personal relationship for me?
I love that. Yeah.
And so I have to add, that's one of the things for me. It's like just measuring things up against my rubric. And that helps me honor myself, because if I'm living based on my core values and I'm making decisions based on my core values and I'm making decisions based on how I feel I want to live and exist in this life. And I think that those core values were also like, I think that's who God created me to be.
Yeah.
Like, I really think that God was like, no, she is a free spirit. I'm an air sign. Like, I am a free spirit, but I also value growing. If I feel stuck, then I feel like I'm not moving forward in life. And I feel like I'm just like, it really is a challenge for me. I think that's part of surrender, is kind of like understanding that you can grow in stillness, I think was important for me. Like, because I felt like if I'm not moving, if my feet aren't moving, then I'm not growing. Not knowing that, like, you can still grow in stillness. You can
like
still,
a tree.
you can still, like a tree. Like, you can still, and trees are like strong and old
Because
structures.
they're so rooted.
Because they're rooted.
Yeah.
So if you're rooted, you can grow in stillness.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that has helped me with honoring myself. And sometimes you kind of like detract. You get in dynamics, you get in relationships, you make business arrangements that don't necessarily align with you. But when you start feeling that in you, you're like, wait a minute, let me check in. Why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
They don't know, it does not align with my core values. Okay, so what are we gonna do about this? How are we gonna get out of this? I've turned down speaking engagements. I've had people like, you know, we've had a contract and everything else, and like after how they talked to me a couple of times, like, I ain't going to speak with them people.
Yeah.
They don't, I don't want to do it.
So your boundaries are enforced.
I have a good, I just finished Nedra Tawwab's book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace, and it's just a little audit in the back. And for the most part, I do have balanced boundaries. But I think that, you know, in some areas like romantic relationships, I tend to have more porous boundaries.
Mine are real porous.
Yeah, and romantic relationships, like, and that's because of understanding my attachment style. Understanding, like, I have an anxious attachment style. So now with that knowledge, now I can be like, okay, Tom, you being codependent. Back up, girl. You being codependent. Like,
you're a little extra clingy.
Yeah, this is your, like, girl, he does not have to text you every hour. But I think that, like, so now just having a better understanding of myself, it helps me honor myself better as well. Human design, getting your human design assessment will help you understand yourself a little better. And I think that when you understand how you were built to be, you can also do more things that are in alignment with your honor.
Yeah.
So,
Also, to learning your life path number.
Yeah, so I'm a 4.
I'm a 9.
You're a 9, okay.
I'm an 11.
Really? I didn't even know it goes up that high.
It does. So 11 is like, so there's 2 master numbers. So you have 11 and 22.
And 33.
And there's 3, and 33. So 11, 22, 33 are master numbers, which is like like the double of 2. One is a double of 1, one's a double of 2, one's a double of 3.
My son's birthday is 11/22. That's really interesting. I'm gonna do his life path and see what his life path number is. I've never done his. But when you understand those things, then you can start to, I think when you don't honor yourself, it's because you don't know what you're supposed to be doing. It's like, I guess.
And
you're like, no,
that's
absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, this is not it. Like, literally be like, this is not it.
Yeah, I think what both of you are saying is like, you just need to get to know yourself.
Yes.
Because that fear, I think that we were talking about this yesterday, like a lot of fear comes from the unknown.
Yes.
When there's so much that has happened in this world because of ignorance and the unknown, and it breeds fear. Yes. I think the more you can try to know and get a deeper understanding of yourself and all the parts of yourself, it helps you to kind of overcome those fears, like you said, and you can come up with rituals, you can come up with routines that align with who you are, so that because it's going to be a daily struggle. It's not just, I'm sure it's not a one quick fix thing that happened and you're like, oh, we're there, Les.
It's daily.
It's daily.
Like, I'm not talking to him no more. You know, and then it's like, I got to decide today, and I got to choose to honor myself today, and I got to choose to honor myself again.
Or even being in love is the same thing. You have to decide to love someone every day and show up with that love every day. I recently got married, and I know that. I wish somebody would have told me that. Like, I was just every day you have to make a decision, because once all those butterflies and that honeymoon and you're doing life with someone every day, you literally have, like, every day I literally wake up and I go, I love my husband. I love my family. I'm grateful for my family. This is what I wanted. Act like it.
Act like it.
And act like it.
And that's
Act
what
like it.
and that's how I like, because I too am a free spirit. And sometimes the confines of motherhood and marriage can feel very suffocating to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like a person, like I just need to move, I need to go, I need to shake, I need to do all the things. And it needs to be like what I want to do. And so much of marriage and motherhood is not what you want to do.
Yeah.
Especially if it can harm or hinder other people that you love.
Yeah.
So it's like every day I just started telling myself, like, no, this is what I wanted. Act like it, own it, walk in it, lean into it, and see what
be
you
excited
can
about.
Be
it.
excited, yeah, and it just helps a lot. So I think overall, we're just trying to say, get to know yourself, get to know what works for you,
Yeah.
see how you can use the things that you already have within you to help you continue to overcome and rewire your brain, because it's already there.
Yes.
It's just tapping into it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a guy, Joe Dispenza.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah, his thing is like thinking, being, doing.
Oh,
thinking,
yeah.
being, doing.
Yeah,
So, like,
he's really
now-
big on rewiring the brain.
Yes, he's a whole series on the Gaia Network.
On
called
Gaia,
Rewire.
yes.
I'll be nerded out on Gaia.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Gaia would just take you just go in a rabbit hole.
Listen, and you just be deep in
And
it.
it's like,
dang, it's 5 hours
Right,
later.
because my sister be like, girl, I just watched about the UFOs and stuff. Like, it really is. But it is really good. But it's like you can. It's back to taking back our power. And I think that we've thought or been taught so long. Well, that's just how I am.
Exactly.
That's just how I
You
am.
can't
It's like
change.
you don't
That
gotta be
is
that way.
not-
And yeah,
You don't
Joe
gotta be that
really
way.
reinforced for me the power of my ability to change. Like when he talked to he has this series where he breaks down how a personality's developed and like why we are the way we are and like how your how things and habits that are not great become who you are.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh well, if it came like that, I could just take it out.
I can take it back.
I can do something else with it.
You do understand me because she says I'm delusional in that I
That's
just
the word I use, delusional.
no. What did she say? I think what was it? Out of touch. Not out of
It depends on what you're
touch.
about to say.
She's talking about, in my mind, I don't always understand why people just can't decide that they don't like something, so they're going to do something different. Because she's like, well, I don't understand that most people are the rule, even though I am the exception. And because I have surrounded myself with a whole bunch of people who are the exception, I think that everybody is just the exception.
Because
And everybody can.
you know they have the capacity, but they have to know they have
But
the
they have
capacity.
to know, and the truth is that most people
And
don't
most
know.
people don't know they have the capacity.
I understand that, but I am delusional as fuck because I believe that everybody just has the
She just
capacity to
cannot
do it.
understand.
I can't understand.
Like her
It's
brain
hard,
cannot wrap
yeah.
around that concept.
I don't understand.
I understand it. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But then also I have to understand that some people exist within their own limitations.
And you can-
and that's part of their life
exactly.
journey. Their life journey is to exist within those limitations.
Yeah.
And like, okay, that's what your soul
And
path
you
is
can
here
only
for.
meet people as deeply as they have met themselves.
That's your soul path. All right.
And I'm learning to accept that because I don't get
Because you
it.
want a different. You don't have to live like
You
this.
don't have to take this.
But it's like
You don't have to
technically
take
they
this.
might have to because that's what their soul is here to learn and
Yeah,
experience.
and journey, and maybe they got to do 4 more lives before they get to where you're at. But they're not there right now, and they may never get there.
Has anyone ever told you your old soul?
Yes.
Exactly.
From the time I was a child, they were like,
You've been here
a
before."
couple times.
Exactly. So like you're further along in your lessons where
Yeah.
they might be a younger soul and they might not be further along.
Or
in
they
their
may be a
lessons.
stubborn soul, or they may be a soul that's regressed. Like, I mean, there's just so many variations that I'm just like, girl, they are not going to do it.
We gotta
They
look
should.
at
It doesn't
sometimes
work
you gotta
like
look at people from a different lens of like humanity and look at it
Yes.
at a soul level. And at a soul level, okay.
they just don't have the capacity.
That's
right
what
now
I'm
in
like.
their
Okay.
life.
Well, I'm learning and I'm allowing relationships to teach me.
Yeah.
And that
that's
I don't force no more.
Yeah.
You can't, you won't. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
power
Next.
in being, like Joe talks about. It's just like that changed my life. Like just learning how to be. I think as women, that is so feminine and so powerful when you can just like sit in who you are
Just be.
and just being as opposed to the doing. And
Yeah.
it's just like no,
Okay.
like this is just who I am. This is how I am. Like take it or leave it.
Yeah.
If you don't take it, you're lost. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not their loss because they gain something that works better. for
It's
them.
always your loss when you lose me. Bye.
Girl, life changers here. Okay. Like lose if you want to.
Yeah. Loser, double loser.
Loser.
First of all, I like that. Lose if you want to.
Yeah.
I am now going to adopt that into my spirit
Always
man.
lose it, boo. Always.
I'm adopt that into my spirit.
When this episode comes out, we're gonna make that the caption. Lose if you want to.
Lose if you want to. Yes, actually, lose if you want to. Listen, this conversation was so good, so enriching. Every single time I have a conversation with you, I always leave with just something that I've learned. And I think I told you before, or maybe I posted it on my Instagram stories. I really like that I can be who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to be wondering or worried about, oh, am I going to offend her? Am I going to this? Am I going to that? It feels good to be able to be free. So yes, we talked about fear in this, but I really would like for all of us to find us some folks that we can be free around and free with, because that freedom, it helps you to overcome a lot of the fears that we just have as humans.
Yeah, I love that.
Like, I can be like, I know without shouting out, I can tell Danielle anything. I mean, the worst parts of stuff, she can be like, sis, I don't know if that's the one, but okay, should we talk through? And I've been able to curate.
But there's no
Like
judgment. I'm just gonna tell you what I think. Like, I think a lot of times we confuse judgment with people like caring and telling you what it is. Like, when I think of judgment, like judgment literally means like to sentence. It means like to decide that this is what the outcome is going to be. That's not the same thing as sharing an opinion or giving advice to your friends. Like we've convoluted, I think, judgment and everything. You're judging me. And it's like, no, I'm your friend. Like if you're doing something crazy, like you kill somebody, I'm gonna be mad, but I'll help you bury the body too. Like I'm gonna call you out. Yeah, like girl,
don't you kill nobody else no more.
Don't kill nobody else, but where we bury the body. You know, like that's me. I'm that friend.
I'm using sulfur to dissolve the bone.
Why did you put me in this predicament? Like I'm really upset with you about that, but what we gotta do? Like that's how I feel about being a mother. Like
yes,
like Karis. We're gonna figure it out, babe. Mommy not turning you in.
No.
Like, I'm gonna say it right now, Mama, I would not turn. You know that young man, his mother, the young man who I think Gabby Prieto, and then the boy was on the run and everything, and they were like, his parents should have turned him in.
What? How? Why?
Turning my child in. Y'all better do your work and come find him.
Like, our tax dollars are being paid
not
to you.
Gonna make your job easy to get my child. Like, y'all better do some work.
I don't know if I always say that. No, I say that too. Like, I don't know if my child committed a crime if I'm gonna turn them in. I don't know. I don't know. I think that's very case by case.
Y'all, my child is in the studio. Please don't ever put me in that predicament. I can't promise that, I'm gonna turn you in, but I just don't want to be in that predicament.
If y'all see any of this down the line, just know.
We didn't turn them in.
Get somebody else to do it.
Get somebody else because she don't know nothing, okay?
I know nothing. But no, Tonya.
Karen, don't tell me nothing, okay?
Yeah. Plausible deniability, all right?